18 months ago, I had a consult call, and these have been extremely valuable, Andy. I've done about 830 now in 5+ years. But this guy said, Jim, I was involved with some accounting, and every single big bank is loaded with gold ready for the next chapter. Every single big bank. I said, beyond Wall Street and the big five? And he said, oh, yeah, but they don't have as much. The big five have enormous amounts of gold. Andy, there's a lot going on, and gold is the future. And I'm excited by it all.
For over a century, we've been conditioned to believe that central banks and financial institutions are the guardians of economic stability. We're told that markets are self-correcting, that inflation is transitory, and that gold is a relic of the past. But behind the smoke and mirrors of media talking points, the world's most powerful banking institutions are making moves that betray a very different reality. Jim Willie is sounding the alarm. Major Western banks are not only bracing for collapse, they're architecting the transition away from the fiat currency system they helped build. The strategy? Accumulate physical gold. Not paper claims, not futures contracts, not ETFs, actual allocated bars stored in private vaults in Switzerland and London, away from the prying eyes of COMEX auditors and LBMA regulators. And they're not alone. Over the last 24 months, global gold demand has shattered records. In 2022, central banks bought the most gold in over 50 years, a surge not seen since the US dollar was taken off the gold standard. In 2023, those numbers were surpassed again. Central banks in Turkey, China, Singapore, and India are aggressively diversifying away from the dollar and stacking gold like it's the only insurance policy that matters. This is not a coincidence, it's a signal. The financial elite know what's coming, and they're not warning you. If you're ready to see through the illusion, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us to uncover how the next global financial system is being built on gold while the old one is quietly dismantled behind the scenes. We appreciate the support and hope you enjoy the video.
To come up with a few items where I can say, I'm going to add value to your table. And here goes. I'll give a preface. It was about 5 months ago, a client of mine said, Jim, I've got a middle to high ranked military research contact, like scientific research. And he's very connected. And I've been getting it now for 5-6 months. And I'm telling you, they're deep. They're not 5 lines. They're 400 lines. There's a lot of information, and some of it is scientific. And I don't want to get lost in the Malaysian airline. I want to get focused on some things that are really relevant right now. He claims that the White Military Alliance, you call it whatever you want. I call it Team Trump, the White Hats. It's not just the United States, by the way. Trump is part of an organization that's far more than just the United States. He claims that Team Trump, with their confiscations and victories, mostly in the Pacific Rim, with gold wars, Team Trump has accumulated well over 100,000 tons of gold, and maybe as much as 300,000 tons of gold. And 100,000 tons of gold is, I believe that's 10 trillion. So the 300,000 would be 300 trillion. Now, he did not say how it was going to be used. He didn't say it was going to cover treasury bonds. Another thing he said in the related item is that Trump is going to saddle the cabal with the $34 trillion in debt. It's not going to be loaded on the U.S. households. It's not going to be draining gold that is an extension of Fort Knox, which got recovered. So Trump has got well over 10, maybe 20 times more than Fort Knox. That's just one item. Another military drop. This is a while back. Russia hid 120,000 tons of gold during the entire Soviet era. And they hid it in the Orthodox Church behind false walls and double basements. 120,000 tons of gold. So the Russians are ready. Chinese they're battling with the Asian elder families, and I'd rather not get caught up in that. He said that the White Alliance with Trump is in command of the next generation high-tech tools, devices. And I could blow you away with a couple things, but I'll just do one because it's a little funny. He said, Jim, I got some news for you. This is through the contact. Got some news for you. Trump won next November. Now just put those tenses together, okay? Trump won next November. So when clients asked me in July, August, September, and October, I said, Trump won. He already won. So don't worry about it. He won in November. What? Okay. It's a head scratcher, and it's a time travel bit of evidence from numerous. Okay. Here's one that's very recent. We've been told that there were 750 plane loads from the Vatican. No, it was a lot more than that. They got 40,000 tons out of the Vatican, and they're still pulling the gold out. There's an unspeakable amount of gold in the Vatican. I think it's connected to those, the tunnel, Istanbul, Jerusalem. Okay, it's very murky, that story, but you keep hearing 100 miles of chest-high gold. I mean, it's unfathomable. It's like 1 million tons. And let me finish this little soliloquy. I don't know. I get carried away, Andy. I can go on and on, but I just heard from the same guy last week. Bank of America has 1 foot in the bankruptcy receivership now. 1 foot in. A different military source, but it's been very reliable too. I got 2 really nice big military resources. Itchy ear, sorry. He said the word used was receivership. I said, okay, so trustee, U.S. government trustee, FDIC. And he said, didn't say FDIC. I said, okay. Was there like a tripwire? Was there an event like with money laundering that got wrecked? Bank of America, money laundering, Bush narco bank, can't avoid that. And he said, I don't know, but that's very likely. I'll try to find out. Okay, Andy, there's a lot going on. And a lot of it has to do with gold. Some of it has to do with the big banks and how they're realigning. I honestly think that London got drained and the big U.S. banks are loading up. And you probably have a lot more information on that. Looks like it with the nod. They're loading up for the gold foundation.
Jim Willie's observation isn't hyperbole. It's backed by hard data. The COMEX registered gold inventory has dropped by more than 75% since early 2022. Similarly, LBMA vaulted gold has declined sharply, with millions of ounces flowing eastward towards sovereign-controlled vaults in Shanghai, Istanbul, and Dubai. This isn't a logistical anomaly. It's the beginning of a monetary regime change. Let's consider the larger context. In 2021, China launched the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, CIPS, to rival SWIFT. In 2022, BRICS nations proposed a commodity-backed reserve currency, hinted by Sergei Glaziev and confirmed in IMF-watched circles. In 2023, over 40 countries expressed interest in joining BRICS Plus, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Argentina, and Egypt, all critical in the global energy trade. And what do all these nations have in common? They've been dumping U.S. treasuries while increasing their gold reserves. According to the World Gold Council, China alone has been quietly increasing its gold stockpile for 18 consecutive months. But insiders suggest the real number is 2 to 3 times higher than what's publicly reported. The People's Bank of China is also buying gold through multiple channels, including the Shanghai Gold Exchange, commercial banks, and state-backed hedge vehicles. The result? A silent but seismic wealth transfer is underway, from fiat-backed paper to tangible sovereign-controlled bullion. And Western financial institutions, especially those tied to globalist networks, aren't sitting idle. They're stacking too, not to profit from the price of gold, but to survive the end of the dollar standard.
Andy, there's a lot going on, and gold is the future. And And I'm excited by it all. But at the same time, I'm worried about something that I call the question of the seamless transition. What'll happen to credit cards? Will they all go away and be replaced by new ones? And every newsletter payment system goes to zero suddenly? Will credit for distribution, like in retail organizations, functions, will it go to zero and have to start over again? And we got 3 weeks of big fat nothing everywhere in the economy. Okay, there are a lot of questions, and Trump via Q has mentioned many times in the last 2 or 3 years, we're going to have it as seamless transition as possible. QFS is going to be a mirrored shadow system. And we're just going to walk it along and suddenly flip the switch. And we're running without any great interruption, which means seamless. And I just can't get a whole lot of confirmation on that. And therefore, I can't be real confident. And I'm worried, like many people are. But, here's one argument that you hear over and over again. Well, Jim, if your business gets wrecked from payment system, then so do another 150,000 or 200,000 businesses get wrecked. So look for the seamless transition. That's what I'm hoping for, Andy, but I don't know. What are you hearing about seamless?
Yeah, well, I think seamless will be very difficult in any transition. The question is it one that is it one that is a coordinated shift towards a new gold-backed framework, or is it something? Are the central banks who have been accumulating so much, as you're alluding to, are they hedging against some major currency event? That you've talked a lot about the accidental death, I think you call it, of a bullion bank triggering a systemic domino effect. Do you see that happening with Bank of America or with a bank? And who are the players that are most exposed beyond the banks? I mean, how far down the chain does this go systemically?
I think maybe a quarter of the S&P 500 companies. I didn't mention something that also came out in the Intel drop. I'll just say it because it's so important. A quarter of the S&P 500 companies are at risk. And my military guy said it's a combination of criminal, finance, and insolvency. So, okay, it's not just big banks. So it's going to be like big corporation, multinational corporations. They're in trouble. And I said, how are they going to resolve that? And he said, well, hold on to your hat, because he was told by the military ranking guide. He said, Jim, I'm talking to majors and colonels, and they're in meetings with generals, and they've got permission to talk to me. And I said, this is great. Tell me all you can. He said, there might be a quarter. It's at most a quarter of the S&P companies, S&P 500. So, do your napkin math. You get 125 corporations. That's for the people who are math challenged out there. And there are a lot of them out there, and it's really quite disgusting. He said they're going to be assigned new CEOs and boards. I said, that's divestiture. He said, sounds like it. I don't know what else it would be, Jim. And I said, I don't either, if they're going to be assigned a new board of directors and CEO. So, okay, you asked, and the focus is really on the banks. And I have a really important point that I'd like to make. And we've got to learn from history. I know it sounds like so long ago, but for me, it wasn't. It was the Lehman crisis. It was 2008. And I gave a 1-year warning, Andy, 1 year in advance. I said, Lehman's going to fall. The credit default swap is zooming up. It's almost 1%. Normal is 15 basis points. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan had each more than double the exposure of Lehman in mortgage finance. Just cockeyed, crappy, quality credit default. Credit, what do you call it? Credit obligations, CDOs, credit Yeah, I can't remember. They just make up names and oh, this is very, very sophisticated. Yeah, CDOs, credit something obligations. And it was loaded with trash. It was like, Class B debt, and they called it AAA, and no one really checked. Okay, here's the lesson learned. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan had more than double the exposure of Lehman, so they decided to kill Lehman. It was odd man out. They're always looking for odd man out. And in 2003, Bear Stearns was odd man out. They were long gold, short dollar. They had to be killed. It took a long time to resolve their book of long gold. They had, oh my gosh. Okay, so, and that was previewed a couple months in advance, but not by me. That was a learning process for me. And from that, oh my gosh, what's next? And it was Lehman. And I had some good tips from clients. I know colleagues on the credit default swap. Here's how it applies to now. Bank of America is involved. I got to say something. I'm not going to be talking about from dark occult forces. And if you don't buy it, I don't care if you don't buy the argument. It means you don't know shit about it. I will talk about money laundering because it's finance. My theory is this, Andy. Bank of America is going to be singled out as the narco bank with money laundering. They're going to be implicated. They're going to be wrecked. They're going to be put through trustee bankruptcy receivership when all the banks are just as involved.
In the last year, we've witnessed record volumes of physical gold leaving New York and London, not into ETFs or vaults owned by Western governments, but into jurisdictions that operate independently of U.S. financial control. Locations like Turkey, Kazakhstan, and the UAE, all with strategic positioning in Eurasian trade networks. This is not traditional diversification, it's risk evacuation. The Western elite know what's coming. The $34 trillion U.S. debt, rising interest payments exceeding military spending, the global de-dollarization campaign, and the breakdown of trust in treasury markets. All signs point to an irreversible trajectory. And the biggest red flag? U.S. banks are beginning to withdraw from the very derivative and liquidity markets they once dominated. JP Morgan has drastically reduced its paper short position in gold, while reports from Swiss refiners indicate a mystery buyer snapping up tonnage-level shipments monthly. That mystery buyer? Most likely the same institutions warning you not to buy gold. So here's the reality. The dollar's final chapter is being written, and those at the top are preparing not with tweets, but with bullion. They're moving fast, quietly, and internationally. If you're waiting for a mainstream media alert that the system is collapsing, you'll be too late. The warning signs are already flashing red. The only question that matters now is, will you be holding paper? If this breakdown helped you see the system more clearly, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes Wall Street has their best interests at heart. Because what comes next isn't a correction, it's a reset. And only those holding real assets will have a seat at the table. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.